What if one construction project in the Himalayas ends up rewriting the entire energy map of Asia? Let's go back to July 19th, 2025. High in the Tibetan Himalayas, on an isolated stretch of a roaring river, Chinese Premier Li Xiang isn't simply inaugurating another dam. He is declaring the beginning of what China calls the project of the century. And while world leaders often use grand language, this moment is different. This ceremony is a public signal, not just to China's own citizens but to the entire world, that the country is stepping into a new phase of ambition. At a time when many nations struggle to even get ordinary infrastructure built, China is launching a project so massive that its success or failure will be analyzed for decades. This isn't just construction. It is a geopolitical statement poured in concrete and steel. China is wagering billions that its engineering capacity, its economic strength, and its political resolve can dominate one of the harshest environments on Earth. This ceremony marks the starting point of a gamble that could reshape geography, redirect energy flows, and alter political dynamics across Asia. The scale alone is almost difficult to grasp. Everyone knows the Three Gorges Dam, the heavyweight champion of hydropower for more than 20 years. But what China is now attempting in Tibet doesn't merely surpass it, it obliterates the record. This new dam complex is designed to be 3 times more powerful, with a targeted capacity of more than 60 gigawatts. Imagine that, triple the electricity of the world's most famous megadam. Enough energy to power an entire developed nation on its own. The numbers are staggering. Estimated cost? Somewhere between $137 billion and $167 billion, more than the total annual GDP of many countries. Expected annual power generation? Nearly 300 billion kilowatt hours. This isn't an incremental improvement. It's a leap into a new category altogether. A jump from the era of the megadam into the era of the Giga-Dam, resetting global benchmarks for what humanity considers possible. And a project of this magnitude doesn't get approved for just one reason. For China, this dam is the perfect two-in-one solution to its biggest long-term challenges. On one side is the global pledge, carbon neutrality by 2060, a commitment that demands a historic shift in the way the country produces energy. This dam is positioned as a centerpiece of that green transformation, a massive renewable engine meant to reduce reliance on coal. But underneath that goal lies another, even more strategic driver: energy security. Dependence on imported oil and gas exposes China to global price swings and international politics. A colossal hydropower asset deep in Tibet gives China a stable domestic energy source that cannot be disrupted by external shocks. It strengthens economic resilience by ensuring reliable power for its eastern industrial heartlands, no matter what happens internationally. So the dam is not just environmentally aligned, it is strategically brilliant, addressing both the external push for cleaner energy and the internal need for long-term self-reliance. To understand its full significance, you have to zoom out. This dam is not a standalone giant. It is the flagship of a much wider transformation China has been quietly implementing across Tibet, often called the Water Tower of Asia. Since the year 2000, China has planned or initiated nearly 200 hydropower projects across the plateau. This new megadam is the crown jewel of that effort, part of a long-term national strategy to harness every major river flowing from these mountains. Tibet is being reshaped into a vast, interconnected high-altitude power hub. The aim is simple: channel remote hydropower resources thousands of kilometers away into the booming cities of the east. This redefines Tibet, from a sparsely populated frontier to a strategic energy asset at the heart of China's 21st century development model. And the chosen location for this mega project almost feels like something out of fiction. Picture the Yarlung Tsangpo River, racing down from glacier-covered peaks, crashing into some of the hardest rock formations on Earth. Instead of passing through, it makes a dramatic U-turn known as the Great Bend, a stunning natural feature, but an engineering nightmare. building a standard dam in such a narrow, landslide-prone canyon would be nearly impossible. So, engineers are considering a dramatic workaround, drilling an enormous system of tunnels straight through the mountain, redirecting the river, and creating an artificial drop of over a mile, roughly the height of 10 Niagara Falls stacked on top of one another. This allows them to harness massive hydropower without fighting the geography head-on. It is essentially geological surgery on a scale rarely seen in human history. But this ingenuity faces a brutal reality. The dam is being built in one of the most earthquake-prone regions on the planet. The Himalayas are the collision zone of two continental plates, an area constantly under tectonic stress. Engineers can design for earthquakes, but they cannot eliminate the risk. It isn't a question of if a major quake will strike, but when, and that's not the only danger. The glaciers feeding the river can also trigger catastrophic bursts when natural ice dams collapse. The resulting flood could send a wall of water and debris straight into the project site. Every calculation, every structural reinforcement, every risk assessment must account for this volatile environment. The cost goes far beyond billions of dollars. It is a permanent wager against the raw forces of nature. Now follow the river downstream. The Yarlung Tsangpo becomes the Brahmaputra in India and the Jamuna in Bangladesh, forming the lifeline of tens of millions of people. For them, this project isn't just a Chinese engineering marvel, it's a source of deep concern. Rivers don't respect borders. Their water supports farms, ecosystems, entire cities. And when the upstream nation builds a structure that can influence flow volumes, timing, and sediment levels, downstream countries naturally worry. The fear is not necessarily that China will immediately weaponize the river, but that control over such a massive upstream structure creates vulnerability. In drought years or during monsoons, even unintended changes in flow could have major consequences. This turns the river from a natural asset into a geopolitical variable, one that ties the destinies of multiple nations to the operation of a single mega project. And then there's the financial message. Spending over $160 billion is not only an investment, it is a global demonstration of capacity. Domestically, it drives job creation, technological experimentation, and economic activity for years. Internationally, it sends a clear message. China can finance and execute engineering tasks that many advanced economies cannot even approve, let alone build. This is what economists call state capacity, the ability of a nation to mobilize resources, overcome logistical obstacles, and build projects that reshape entire landscapes. In the 20th century, megaprojects like the Hoover Dam and Three Gorges became national symbols. This new dam aims to become the defining symbol of the 21st century. By tripling the previous world record for hydropower, China is pushing the global boundaries of what is considered achievable. It forces other nations to rethink their own infrastructure ambitions and acknowledges a new era where the scale of possibility has dramatically expanded. But for all its ambition, the project's ultimate legacy will depend on the unknowns. The exact blueprint, still secret, will determine how engineers conquer the Great Bend and secure the dam against major earthquakes. The environmental consequences remain unclear, especially in such a remote, ecologically delicate canyon. And the disaster plan, the ultimate safeguard in case of a megaquake or glacial flood, has not been publicly revealed. These unanswered questions will decide whether this becomes the most impressive engineering accomplishment of the century, or a future warning about the dangers of pushing ambition into unstable ground. The concrete is being poured, but the final judgment is still wide open. Thanks for watching. If this helped, subscribe for more calm, in-depth analysis. See you next time.